But when you could see them break down or they get partway through their story and they'd just suddenly go, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
And they'd have got to the point of what they needed to find.
Yes.
They've had the answer. They were talking through something that might have happened 10 or 20 years ago, or it might have happened 20 minutes ago. But they would work through it.
Yeah.
And I think some of the strategies we passed on about, that meditation, I said, where you can take the thing that's challenging you the most and just flip it on its head and change that into your thought pattern. That becomes your reality.
Yes.
And you could see them work through these challenges and then suddenly go, that's where I wanted to be at that point in time, and I wasn't. And giving them that space and just watching the change in, you could see them suddenly, shoulders went back and straightened up and eyes were wide open and it was just amazing to watch. It was beautiful to be a part of, and I got so much out of it. Yeah. Because I do turn up very, very heart-led and heart-centered because that's who I am.
Hello, Quanta folks, and welcome to another podcast episode of Faark The Shoulds. We love farking the shoulds here at QuantiMama. I am Jodi.
And I am QuantiPapa McGill. Welcome back.
Good to be here. So today we are talking about the circle of life.
Ooh.
No, not really. We're talking about circle, and I always feel like circle needs to be have more corners for men, like it's too feminine. Does it feel too feminine? Do you want to call it like square?
Square? No, definitely not square. No, circle's good. Circle's good. We're not going to burst into the Circle of Life song.
No, we're not, because I know I'm going to be off key, but I will be enthusiastic. No, we want to talk about the benefit of being in circles, so having men's circles and having women's circles. I have been one of the very privileged few where we live in a women's circle for the past 4 years, maybe 5 years.
Longer than that, yeah.
5, 6. And I've been like a bit negligent over time, and the women know that. Like, I can be a bit shit. It gets a bit busy at home and I go, sorry, I'm out. But I think that one of the things that I really want to talk about is I want to dispel the mysticism around it, and I want to also create more of an opportunity for people out there to create these experiences for themselves, because I now take it for granted in the most loving way, and the benefits are extraordinary. They are so extraordinary. And one of the things that always comes up, and, two of the women in my small women's circle, there's only 7 or 8 of us, and that's kind of a sweet spot to get to. But they are all about offering this to other women in a different kind of way, because they say that women are just yearning for it. Like, their soul is screaming for these connections.
So I was going to say, that's the word I wanted to get out of you, is connection.
Yes.
And for probably a period of 18 months, we had a men's circle going as well.
Yes.
And we had that interaction, that connection. And it's interesting, for some reason in society, women have been very good at sort of talking, whereas men tend to need something to do, or we're programmed to think we need something to do if we're going to sit around. There's no just
need a fishing rod amongst
you need a fishing rod, or you need a stubby in your hand, or you need that quintessential male thing, while men get together just to talk. So dispelling some of those myths, I guess, is sort of launched straight into, my darling.
Yes, that's how I go, babes.
So there's also quite a few myths around men getting together into a group of circle,
Yes.
And the myth I wish to dispel to start with, one of our great members in there, who is also a good friend of both of us, has done some of this sort of, where this is going, has done this sort of stuff.
I was really hoping you would mention this and throw him under the bus.
Well, I won't name him, but he'll know who he is. But he basically had our first ever men's circle, and sort of got to the end of it, and there was about 5 or 7. So, that wasn't too bad. And he said, yeah, he goes, Yeah, I've been to one where, they walk around and they go, drop your tackle out and get the bloke next to you, grab hold of both of them and tell them how you feel.
And what you feel or how you feel?
How you feel. And then he went on to politely suggest, I think we should do that next week. Without a hint of a smile on his face.
He has a master poker face.
And the look of abject horror and shock and confusion on the rest of our faces, that mask fell away and he just wet himself.
Yes.
And it was the funniest thing because then every time that we hit a snag or a hard spot in our group or our circle or something like that, someone would just, eventually, put their hands up as though they were cupping something, and it would get a laugh going, and the conversation would just roll on. If we ever had any sticky times, which weren't many. So
sticky times, nicely said, McGill.
Not intentional, that one.
No. So I think, quite apart from any ball cupping that potentially goes on in men's circles, I think it's really helpful if we even just start with explaining our experiences of what circle can be and how we show up there, and then I guess we can even then just talk about, what that does for us as well, because I think that the way it can impact you on a daily basis, the way it can impact family dynamics, the way it can impact how you teach your children around self-care. There's so many layers and beautiful sort of ancillary lessons that come along with it.
And how much of that potentially self-help advices are out there again. Just take 10 minutes to yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you know what? Take it to the next level.
Yes, that's right.
And it's funny because when Jodi was beginning the circle stuff and was going, she'd be almost apologetic for leaving the house.
Oh, my God. I know. And I've seen women in our circle do the same
Whereas I was putting my foot going, off you go, darling, giving her that shove because I could see the benefits that came from it, which is where you're going to launch into.
Yeah. So circle for me is I knew one of the women and sort of knew one of the other women just, as another school mum, and because we're recovering school parents, aren't we? But I went along sort of not knowing what to expect because somewhere in my mind I was thinking there's got to be some kind of goat sacrifice involved somewhere here. It sounds very ritualistic.
It sounds very pagan, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, a bit of worshipping the crystals and, I don't know, tarot cards and whatever you're into, it's fine. But it felt very much like that. But in fact, the way circle, and we've evolved it over the years, there's no doubt we've, I think, stripped back to bare essentials that really acknowledge what it is that the participants want and how they are nourished. And so the key components of how we meet in circle is that we will gather in a space, and it's usually in a particular space that's it's created to create this beautiful circle experience. We're very blessed to have access to this extraordinary spot that's set up for our circle. And even the space is like geometrically sacred. It's, a geodesic dome, and it's just gorgeous. And yeah, as I said, we're so blessed for that. But you could gather anywhere. You could gather in any room if you want to.
It's taking a little bit of care when you're gathering into that space.
There's an intention.
Yeah, that it's an intentional space, and and you're creating almost a bubble around that space.
That's exactly what you do.
And there's a level of trust in amongst the people you're with, so that if you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable and you're speaking your absolute God honest truth, and you are raw to the bone, knowing that that's not going to be passed on, or that you're not judged for that. And in our men's group, we made very quickly at the start, the first rule we had was there was no judgment.
Yes.
No judgment, full stop.
And that's inherent in ours. I mean, we've never had to say that because it just doesn't happen. And perhaps, as you talked about, women intuitively know that a little bit more. I think women are very good at being judgy and bitchy. I think society sort of propagates that to keep us separated. Anyway, another musical reference. But I think that in ours, inherently, it's just assumed that you can show up as you need to show up and your space will be held, as in, like, you will be accepted however you come. And that's, I mean, it's so reassuring because there's nothing further required. But our circle will include, so we're very blessed with the space. And then what we do is we come together and someone will open circle. And the opening circle can be like this kind of amazing meditation that someone brings us into, or it can simply be that we bring our attention and our breath into the space and we create an intention where we are opening the space for the conversation. And then usually what will happen, one of our beautiful soul sisters is just amazing at finding the most extraordinary music, and so sometimes we'll sing along to a song, which is gorgeous. There's something deeply healing in hearing voices come together. And, I think it's a sound resonance that's got a healing property to it, especially when you're showing up in your heart space. I really do think that, and maybe that's why babies love hearing their parents sing, because when they sing without witness, they really show up in their heart space, and there must have some kind of healing frequency to that. Sound is incredibly powerful. So we'll do that. Sometimes we'll have a dance, and it's always kind of slightly daggy mum dancing, but that's the joy of it, because we're all just showing up how we show up and feeling into the music. So again, it's a bit like, dancing with the lights off. It's got that kind of vibe to it. And then generally speaking, if we have an activity or we don't have an activity, we will then have an opportunity for what we call a share. And one of the frameworks for that, which is really powerful, and I think that it could do well in lots of families as well, is that we utilise something called a talking stick. I think my first experience of a talking stick was probably at Camp America or something like that. It feels very American. I don't know. But the idea of a talking stick or some sort of, symbolic thing that you have, sometimes phallic, is that you hold on to that. And when you have the talking stick, the opportunity is that you have the mic, essentially. And it's not a conversation. It's literally just a share. And it's a share of whatever comes through. And that has been something that has, I think, I can comfortably speak for our sister circle, that it has been mental health medicine for so many of us to show up in that space, knowing that you can say whatever you need to say. Like, we've had opportunities where we've shared and it's just been tears. Like, the floodgates just open and the release happens and the healing takes place in that as well. But one of the magical things that I think happens when you share without feedback and without someone trying to solve your experience or help you understand it or accelerate through the discomfort of particularly those big emotions, is you have an opportunity to experience your own self-healing and have an opportunity to experience the fact that, in fact, you may very well hold the answers to all of your questions.
And that's one of the most amazing things. When you talk a problem out loud, and there's other people there, but they're not communicating back with you at that point in time. When you hear your own voice,
yes,
when you're not sitting there thinking through in your head constantly and it just goes round and round, you're giving it, you're letting it out.
Yes.
And quite often through that letting it out, and we'll come back to my experience of circle in a sec, when you're letting that out and you're discussing that openly and no one's talking, there's just acceptance and there's just space being held.
Yeah.
99.999% of the answers we hold.
Yes, of course.
We just don't see them at the time.
And we don't have a belief that we see them. So as you create experiences for yourself where you are the answer to your own queries or concerns or hurts, then the sense of empowerment is just, it just balloons. Like, it has this sort of momentum of its own, because when you get a whiff of that, you then want more of it. It's intoxicating to know that you can be the solution for everything that's happening for you. And, it almost plays into what we were talking about with wisdom, and so maybe that is that thing of we gather in circle as adults in a different way to perhaps how we gather together as teenagers. And teenage circles could be so powerful, but I have a sneaking suspicion they are very much driven by, how do I look to others? How do I sound to others? How do I present to others, and being concerned more about that than what's within your heart and
that
your
would also
instructions.
depend on who the individuals are within your circle.
I know, but
and who your
comprehensively through
facilitator is.
society.
Well, you're far more susceptible at that age
Yes.
to those external
Yes.
guides or measures, for want of a
Yeah.
better description. So you
Mm.
tend to measure yourself against that. And
Mm.
once you've got a bit of life experience behind you, you tend to be able to put aside that thing of being vulnerable in front of people or stepping into that level of discomfort.
Oh, and I also think that, overwhelmingly it's women that collect in circles.
Mm.
We're so freaking tired and worn down. And, if you're a parent, you're pretty worn down by that as well, because that's Groundhog Day at very low pay. So as a consequence, when you've used up all the farks in your fark jar, for want of a better term, you end up, I think, being having more accessibility to that rawness and having more of a willingness of showing up in that way as well, because you're like, I can't be bothered with the rest of it. I just got to be me.
Yep. And that's what you want. It's a well-held circle.
Yes.
Allows you to express your rawness, your emotion, your true self.
Yes.
And allowing that out and getting comfortable with that and getting comfortable saying that in front of other people allows you to bring that more into your everyday life and your everyday being.
Yes.
And it's something that can change the way you interact with the world.
Yeah, it's so true. So, I think my point that I want to say, bringing, I guess, a closure to the side of the conversation to do with women's circles, is that it's incredibly easy to cultivate. Like, you literally just put it out there, and there's something quite rich in it being not people you know. You can actually forge friendships that are in a very different sense. Like my soul sisters, I might not see them on a regular basis, as in during the week in a more sort of everyday living sense, but I will see them and show up completely authentically, and they too in the same way each time we meet in the week. And it's quite a privileged relationship. It doesn't require this kind of everyday nurturing of checking in on how they're going or any of that sort of stuff. We end up just holding that space each week and meeting in a very meaningful way. And it's really quite next level in terms of that impact. But that can be cultivated by anyone at any time without any props, for want of a better term. You literally just show up and you say, we're going to gather together for an hour and a half, and this is loosely what we're going to do. But I think having some gentle rituals around honouring the space, honouring each other, so opening and closing the circle is really beautiful. And then there's plenty of ideas on the interwebs if you need some kind of structure before you really find your feet and do it in your own intuitive way. But the women who are out there yearning for it, I just encourage you to stop yearning. It's such wasted, purposeless energy. Like, just go find some people, put a call out there on, social media to say, we're doing a gathering, and just see who shows up. And be patient, because people will show up exactly where they're at, and sometimes they're still in the midst of dropping their programming and finding their authentic voice. And so circle can be that opportunity for people to really disrobe all of the programs that they bring in with themselves, and that can sometimes take a little bit of time and trust and surrender, things that we're perhaps unpracticed at. But I encourage you, it's worth it. On the other side, it is so deeply worth it. So that's women's circles, and I think that women will adjust this far more, but men's circle is like a unicorn.
It is, but the value of it, again, the same as a women's circle, cannot be undone.
So what did your circle look like? I think as a framework for people, it's really helpful for them to get a sense of, did you start with the goat sacrifice? Did you finish with the goat sacrifice? At what point did you do the ball cupping? Like, when did all those things happen?
Cough once, please, for yes, and cough twice for no. What does 3 mean?
I'm not touching it. I'm not touching it.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Thanks. So we're pretty low key. Most guys are. Most guys like things to be low key.
Yeah.
And so low key is, we would get to our place, get to our gathering. We'd arrive as we could. If people were there earlier, they'd sit around and they'd just start chatting, and we'd sort of they'd have sort of generally 4 to 5 stalwarts and maybe 1 or 2 others that would come in when they could. And so if you were there early, you'd just sit down and just start talking about general things with another man. Because the impetus on men has always seemed to be, when you're going to communicate with another man, as I said earlier, it's got to be at a sporting event, it's got to be over a beer, or you've got to be doing something. So you're never truly present. You're never showing up 100% to that level of presence. Now I had sort of knew a few of the guys that were in the circle, but I didn't know them intimately, and not to the point where I got to know them.
Yeah.
And I had, I guess, to a point, probably had a bit of an idea of who they were, but who they really were and truly were surprised me. It was amazing. And getting past that whole facade of men, and letting that go and stepping into that space, and you sort of have your conversation, and we would then sit down, or we'd get ourselves comfortable, we'd lay down, and we would generally open our circle with a meditation, or with a even if it was just a spoken through meditation, or a period of time of silence. So you would sit in a room with other men around you, and you would just be silent.
Which is very unusual, isn't it?
It's very unusual for any of us to sit anywhere in silence these days. We have our phones going, we have our family going, we have our children going, we have this going, we get in the cars, we put our radios on. There's all these different
everything is filled
distractions
with noise
that are there, and so suddenly just turning it all off and just sitting in silence. And I remember the first time we did it, you could feel everyone sort of fidgeting.
Yeah.
And then when we do it at a few other points, so it's also a strategy we would use through our circle if we needed to change topic, or if someone had just poured their heart out and they just needed that extra bit of space where there was just nothing. It just gave the whole room time to effectively purify and allow what had been said to be, heard and moved.
Yeah.
So that was a really powerful exercise that we did. And so we'd sort of, sometimes different people would lead us through the meditation. It was always open.
Yeah.
I've never been stuck for a word. So if someone didn't wish to do open with meditation or silence, but they wanted something spoken, I would happily volunteer to do that. And that might be something as simple as just, a breathing focus exercise, or a choosing the thing that's been an exercise where you choose something that's been really tough through the week, and you just bring all your attention, close your eyes into that, have silence on it now, and then talking through ways that you could either flip that on its head, or then choosing something in your week that was just amazing and blew you away, and then giving the opportunity for people to share that.
Yeah.
And so what you found is that sometimes when you did something that was really challenging, people would want to get that out.
Yes.
We would also use this talking stick as well. And non-verbal communication amongst men is one of those, is a really big thing. With my background in emergency services, a huge background in martial arts, all that sort of stuff, I have this ability to look for cues that something's not right, and it was always from a threatening background point of view. But what I found in amongst our circle was that when someone was sharing, people genuinely wanted to reach out and put a hand on them.
Yeah.
But there was this huge level of respect where once when they put this talking stick down, someone might just shuffle over and pop a hand just on their shoulder or on their leg, and no words were spoken.
No.
And this is where it became really powerful. It's just that, you know what, I see you, brother. I see exactly who you are. I hear what you've said, and I see you. And that's all it needed to be.
It makes me want to cry, McGill. Oh my
But
gosh.
this is the richness of what men miss, and
somewhere in there that society has said it's not very masculine and almost, I mean, the ball cupping thing is hilarious, but it's
and not
also
true.
but it also goes along with that stuff as well of men can't meet without some kind of joke
or
at
sexual
the expense.
innuendo or alcohol being involved.
Yeah.
Or bravado and bluff being
Yeah.
involved. So sorry, so I got right into that then, and so I'll keep moving through. So we'd have a sort of our bit of time with our talking stick, and then we'd open discussion on bits and pieces and just talk about stuff that had come up for people. And then as a general rule, we might have a song. We never sang. It wasn't in our comfort zone.
Yeah.
But we'd be happy to listen to something for a period of time, and we would generally close with an official close, going, I bring this circle to an end. I acknowledge the people around me. I see them. I thank them for their rawness and their beauty, and then we drift off and go about our lives.
And so what did circle do for you? What was surprising for you? Because you're very heart-led anyway, but I'm curious see, the thing for you, McGill, is you show up in that way that you're a natural leader in those heart-led spaces, but I am certain there were experiences within there that surprised you or delighted you or was like a little cherry on top of the cake.
What I saw was when people that you could see they needed and wanted to give of themselves, but for the first little while they couldn't.
Yes.
And allowing that trust to build, allowing them to bring down their own defenses, and then hearing them start to share.
Yeah.
Not necessarily from their heart to start with, but they were working towards it. And then watching these men get back into their heart space and talk from their heart and talk about things that may have wounded them or that they may carry with them. And again, not solving their problem.
Yeah.
Not commenting on it.
Yeah.
Just letting them talk. And you could see with some of them, and some that got emotional enough, and that was welcome.
Yes.
There was no judgment for that. But when you could see them break down or they get partway through their story and they just suddenly go, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
And they'd have got to the point of what they needed to find.
Yes.
They've had the answer. They were talking through something that might have happened 10 or 20 years ago, or it might have happened 20 minutes ago. But they would work through it.
Yeah.
And I think some of the strategies we passed on about, that meditation I said where you can take the thing that's challenging you the most and just flip it on its head and change that into your thought pattern, that becomes your reality.
Yes.
And you could see them work through these challenges and then suddenly go, that's where I wanted to be at that point in time, and I wasn't. And giving them that space and just watching the change in, you could see them suddenly, shoulders went back and straightened up and eyes were wide open and it was just amazing to watch. And it was beautiful to be a part of, and I got so much out of it. Yeah. Because I do turn up very, very heart-led and heart-centered because that's who I am. And watching other people find that and be comfortable in that, because it's pretty uncomfortable. That was really powerful.
Yeah. Beautiful. So how do men do this? How do they find permission for themselves? I mean, you don't need permission to do this stuff, but we seem to have a society that has set us up to needing permission. I mean, that's why there's so many influential influencers that are giving permission to everyone. I mean, it's the biggest load of bullshit. Give yourself permission or just decide to go do it. You don't need permission. But how do we create an opportunity for people to take that first step? What do men need to do that?
A good push from their wife, probably.
It possibly is. I mean, in all honesty, I would love it if McGill were to step back into the circle space, because I think that there's a richness in there that scares you because you are so authentic and raw. And what does that mean? And like in those spaces, you change stuff in your life. Like you have realizations and epiphanies and downloads because you kind of connected in with whatever you want to call it, but essentially your source connection. And, that can really upset the apple cart because our life generally is just, sleep, eat, work, repeat, and it's very monotonous. We live in the past, we live in the future, and we really don't shake shit up in a meaningful way. But when you start getting a taste of doing that, it can be quite confronting, can't it? Because it's like, oh my God, I have a real risk of blowing up my life in some way because I realise what I need to do.
So what I'd say for men, if they're not comfortable to reach out and make a group or, have some connection with just people but have a period of time where that connection isn't reliant on an activity.
Yes.
So, I did a lot of sports growing up. So I had lots of interaction with, with men all the time and boys and blokes, and we go and play sport and we do this together and we do that together. There's always that focus. It was about, I think, so if you could get even a friend or two together without the focus on, I'm here 10 minutes early before we go out for the night, or I'm here, we're going to have some beers, or we're going to do this. Just see if you can drop in and catch up with a couple of people with no agenda.
I don't know. That feels superficial and safe. Because those people don't show up either. See, when you create an intention of a space, it changes things. Like you're literally walking in dressed for the occasion, energetically.
But I'm trying to get to the people that sort of go, oh, this might be interesting, but I don't even know where to start. Where how do I get comfortable being around men without an agenda?
I wonder if the answer lies in getting comfortable with having silence with yourself. So having a daily practice where you sit and you are silent and you don't have anything else around you, and kids can come in and interrupt you, but if you don't respond, they soon get the idea you're not available. And I mean, that's my practice now, where I sit in silence each morning. And what happens is if kids come in, they'll ask me a question and I'm the observer. I'm not answering and I'm not available. And what they're now doing is they sit down and sit in silence next to me, which is really quite sweet. They don't last nearly as long, but they're doing still a little bit of silence, but they're not asking anything of me. And I wonder if there's an opportunity for men particularly to get comfortable with the silence, because that feels like, I need to be doing something or scrolling or something practical or listening to something.
And I really appreciate that you said that, but if we're moving into a circle, we're moving into connection with men with other men.
Yes.
Silence and that sort of stuff would be golden for men to get to and be comfortable, because that's getting comfortable with self first. And that then allows you to turn up authentically more and more. But when you're aiming to get men together, and there are groups that run men's days, where men get together, and that might be a place you could go to where you could make some connection, find some guys that might live nearby.
It's like ripping a Band-Aid off, doing the full day, and then you pull back and you do, okay, we'll just do an hour and a half each week.
Yeah, but just meeting, just realising there's other men out there that want that connection as well.
Yeah.
And
which I suspect most do.
There's a huge amount, but the challenge is finding the comfort of going, this is what I want to do.
But it's not comfortable. It won't be comfortable. It's just a willingness to experience the discomfort and know that you're okay in that discomfort. I think that's the key. If you walk in expecting it to be comfortable, then you'll last one session, But there's gold on the other side of that discomfort, because that's the growth and the shake-up.
There absolutely is, because it's an opportunity to discuss so much about yourself and examine yourself.
Yeah.
And the other people will share stuff and you'll sort of go, oh, wow. Oh, I want to incorporate that into my life.
Yes.
And then so you'll listen to what that person has to say and how they acted and what they did, and suddenly you'll go, I'm going to and you might pick up one thing a week or, a couple of things from different people. And that when we had our open discussion time, nothing was, so we could then ask direct questions of one another, which was a really powerful thing. And I've always been a person for direct questions, even no matter how uncomfortable they are. And to start with, I'd start with, oh, look, you can say no to this, but I'm going to ask you this. You don't have to answer it.
Yeah.
And then over time in the group, there was that little bit of genteelness around it. And then it was just direct questions that cut through all the all the stuff, and it's a direct question, straight to your core. And
which is where the interest is.
And it's also where the greatest amount of growth and the greatest opportunity to, you know, get comfortable with just who you are is. So for men, I'd say that, you know, maybe look around and see what men's groups there are that do big sort of self-help days or get-together days and do their own thing and meet some like-minded men.
Yes.
Meet some – they're out there. There's so many men out there that want to change their lives or change part of who they are or be a better version of themselves. You don't have to change yourself completely. Sometimes you just want to be an extra 10 seconds before you blow your stack, right?
Yeah.
And who knows what happens in that 10 seconds. And something someone else has said kicks in and you go, hey, this is hilarious because he said that this is what happens to him. And, oh, hang on. Oh, no, back to where I was.
Yes.
And that edge is gone and we're suddenly calm again or we're coming from a loving space or that ability.
We get resources in there.
Yeah. Learn strategy.
Yeah. It's good. Go find yourself a circle.
Find yourself some like-minded people, some people that want growth. And be vulnerable.
Thank you for sharing that. I really love hearing about what men's circle is like because, you know, I take our women's circle for granted in the most well-intentioned, loving way. But, you know, I just expect those beautiful women to show up authentically, and they do every time. They never disappoint me.
You guys, as a group, you're very well practiced.
We are very well practiced, but it's possible to get there. You don't have to jump straight into the deep, cold ocean. You know, you can dip your toes and that's perfectly fine.
And I'd say, particularly for men and women, if you sort of get going to one, give it a chance.
Yes.
Because there'll be some people there that just can't share.
Yes.
And there'll be some people there that just seem to be ready to share everything they've got. And we're all at different points in time, but it's about finding your point.
Yeah, and being comfortable with where you're at, finding acceptance.
So hopefully that demystifies a little bit of circles and gives you some ideas. And these activities can be taken into your home.
Yes.
They can be taken to your partner.
Yes.
Especially the talking stick. It means I get a word in. I did suggest it for the podcast, but no.
No, never going to happen. Thank you, darling. Another beautiful chat.
Girl.
We'll look forward to talking with you soon, QuantiFolk. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Bye.